far off his PB. That's a good first round match for him then. And then do you know Hitch's PB?
Hitch's PB, he actually got a couple days ago. It's like a mid 46.32, something like that.
All right. It looks like they are off and running. They're both doing what I would expect anybody who's picking up this game specifically for the tournament to start with Magnet. And you know all about Magnet first. Tell us about it.
I do know a little bit about this route. Yeah, this is generally what's considered the safest route. Of the three main routes, speaking of Gemini, Top, and Magnet, this is probably the middle in terms of speed, but it's probably the easiest to get into if you're learning the game. So a lot of the people that have picked up the game for the tournament, or pick it up in the last year or two, you'll find Magnet is the most common route among those runners. The benefit of Magnet is that, first of all, Magnet's weapon is very useful in a lot of areas. And then second of all, you don't have to deal with doing Gemini with no weapons. It just gives you a little bit more tools throughout the run.
There's less mashing in Magnet first, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is Mega Man 3. Every route is definitely going to have its share of mashing. I would say there's less required mashing in this one in order to save time.
Because that would be the route if I were to pick up this game, because I'm awful at mashing, this would be the route you would suggest for someone of my ilk to pick up for the tournament.
I suggest this to just about anybody short of someone looking to get a 34 in this game.
Okay. So we're getting close to the Magnet Man boss, and this is one of the downsides, I guess, to Magnet First, because in Top First, the fight is very fixed, but in Magnet First, this fight is not at all fixed, right?
Right. Yeah, there's plenty of randomness in this fight. You can see Magnet Man can either jump or shield. You see both of the runners going through this. When he shields, you want to have health to be able to damage boost into him in order to... So you can see Hitch here has to wait out this shield pattern. And so that's the tricky part, and you see him taking a death there. That's unfortunate. But this is the most difficult part of Magnet First, relative to the other routes. You know, of the strats that are unique to the individual routes, this is definitely where you have to put the bulk of your practice if you're going to be a Magnet First player. This fight is challenging.
Yeah, there is a way to get him out of his shield pattern without taking damage. How would you rate that as far as... Oh, wow, this pattern. He got all shields the second time through.
When you get really good at this route, you actually want to see all shields. But as a beginner, you don't want to see that at all, because it's really difficult to deal with that pattern. There's a couple things you can do. You can damage boost him in such a way that you get double hits in the corner, or you can shield cancel him by jumping over his shield and then getting away from him before he starts jumping at you, which is pretty tight timing.
All right, I know there's this special thing about Hard Man that a lot of Mega Man runners like to say is the unique part about Hard Man. Tell me what it is.
So this is the only stage in the game that doesn't have any pits or spikes, with the exception of like the last two, just boss fight stages. So no instant death here. If you die, it's because you ran out of health. So it's a pretty fair stage.
Or too fair, if you want to go that far. Right?
That said, it is not easy. There's some really challenging enemies to deal with in this stage. The bees in particular in the first screen, and then the Met Dozers that we saw. They have a really peculiar hitbox. They give people a lot of trouble. And then these monkeys will follow you, and they will not stop following you.
I might have made a mistake opening up the chat here. There's some good stuff going on in chat right now that I should keep some decorum of professionality. Okay, that's gone now. But anyway, all right. There's a fixed Hard Man fight here that are most people going to be going for it? Is it an easy thing to learn?
It's not particularly easy. You can see Mazimov took the safe route there, which is recommended. Basically, there's a way where you don't get frozen by him, and that involves getting hit directly underneath him. Wow, Hitch with the gap slide there. I
just saw that. I was going to mention that too.
Sub-pixel slide. You'll see the task do that everywhere, but you're not supposed to be able to do that as a human being. Hitch is embodying the task here. But yeah, you can get stomped by Hardman in such a way that he hits you twice and knocks you out of the stun animation. But it does, wow, that little gap entry there saves about 5 frames, and like nobody goes for it except for I think like Prizzy. Anyway, but yeah, it does 12 damage, so it's something that a lot of runners don't opt to try to learn right away. And we see both runners ended up just taking the freeze there, which is totally fine. Costs about 2 seconds.
What kind, like, for some of these, I don't want to say, I'm like newer players, I guess. I'm not sure if Hitch would qualify as that. What would you recommend out of the strats you take? What percentage of those do you think they should try to learn or learn some safer stuff?
It's hard to put a percentage on it. I would recommend, usually if you're trying to learn this game, look at a couple of different PBs. Like you can look at the the world record video or whatever, or the best magnet first time, and start from there and see what of that you feel like you can do. And then take a look at a PB that's somewhere around what your goal is. If you want to get a sub 40, look at a run that it's around there. And see what kind of strats are employed there, and see if you can get some ideas for backups. But yeah, probably about half, something like that.
Okay. Do you think they'll be doing these this top jump here?
Mazimov might. He might. But that's fair.
I mean, that's such a small time loss that I'm wondering if someone who gets really good at the quote unquote safer strats can go. Say you die in the hard part of Gemini. That's not specific enough, but like the single block section of Gemini, how much does taking Rush Marine save or lose compared to the single blocks?
It depends on how well you execute the single blocks. Like, not everybody's single blocks are the same. It's about probably up to 8-9 seconds against like a really good single block slides. Compared to how most people do them, like with their first learning, it's actually really not that much different. Like a lot of the people that have been learning this for the tournament have, reported maybe having a 2 or 2 second difference between their Rush Marine and their single blocks.
Like what Hitch was doing there with using magnets to utmost effect to, not worrying about damage boosting, so he's not worrying about his health as someone who's new at it, keeping a health high.
Yeah, there's a lot of decisions you can make, during the course of the run that can, little time saves and losses here and there to make your run more consistent.
Basically, what we're getting down to is like, even if you're doing these easier and slower strats, a missed hard thing like a death in there. How long does a death cost you in Gemini in that spot? 35, 40 seconds?
So that is the checkpoint room, but because of respawning the music when you die, typically a death there is going to cost at least 20, and it can cost up to 30.
You have a couple of mistakes there by the top players doing that stuff, and all of a sudden you're ahead. And you're a new player whose PB is barely 40 minutes.
Sure. So a big reason for the magnet first route compared to top is you get to see Maz using magnet here to clear these parachutes from a distance, and so it's a lot safer. It's not completely free. The drops there, you have to learn how to navigate them, but compared to the strats you have to use there in top first, it's much easier. And then getting back to your point about, deaths costing a lot of time, we mentioned that last top where they both waited. You can go there without stopping. A death there costs, about 40 seconds versus a time save of less than 2. So, that type of risk reward, you have to really be confident in your ability to hit a trick like that to want to go for it in a race.
And mathematically, you could probably do the math on it. It's probably somewhere you have to get it about 85-90% of the time to justify that potential loss.
Yeah, definitely.
Time to pick up that time. For you'd get that definitely in that range, so you would go for it. Some other people probably not so much.
Feed froze on me here.
Did?
Yeah, yours is still going? Let me reload it.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck at 912. Okay, here we go.
So Maz is going through one of the probably the toughest section or stage of the first 8. Gemini.
Yeah, definitely.
Which would you
First,
consider the harder one, the first or the single block area, as far as?
oh man, so the more risky section. Ooh, so there's a skip there where you skip this Proto Man cutscene. I want to say the skip itself saves about 10 seconds. You can see how long he's waiting here. But then also the skip despawns the music in the stage, which in Mega Man 3, killing the music actually reduces slowdown. And misses the zip there, unfortunately. And yeah, so there's the compounded time loss there from having to do this stage with music. Also, we can keep an eye on this when he gets to, the dangerous single block room that Darkling has alluded to a couple times. Because these runners are probably used to doing it without the music, and doing it with can, be troublesome if they haven't practiced it.
What are those things he's going through, those penguin things? I thought they were kind of dinosaur things.
Yeah, if you actually get the skip, the sprites of those things are garbled. You actually don't get to see them in the speedrun very often. So he's not using Rush Marine here. He's going to do the top with music. We'll see how this goes. This, I would say, this is the more dangerous just because it's so easy to die. I would say the first screen is harder than this screen, though. First screen has just way more things to do and way more memorization.
It's definitely more punitive here, though, because you lose to death rather than
Yeah.
just losing some time per missed things there. Oh.
So
Safe and sure,
yeah.
though.
So Maz just opted to go for the top route, but not do any single block slides, and use the Shadow Blade to clear the dragonflies, which again is an option that's not available to you in Gemini First. So the use of having both Rush Marine and Shadow Blade just gives you a lot of options for how to clear the stage. This is a fight a lot of people struggle with when trying to learn either Magnet First or Top First, because fighting this guy with Shadow Blade is fighting this guy in general is a little tricky, just because of how some mechanics work in this game, as far as turning around and shooting on the frame you land. A couple of these things can actually eat your inputs, and so it takes a little bit of practice to figure out how exactly you want to engineer that fight. So we saw that Hitch also missed the skip here, so he's going to be dealing with music in this stage as well.
What's the time frame to jump on that skip?
It depends on how good your slide is into the screen. It's not too challenging. It's one of those things that once you get a feel for where to slide in the previous screen, you'll start to hit it. You'll probably have a frame window, to answer your question, of like 12 to 15 frames, I think. Or probably not that much, probably like 10 to 12. So we see Hitch going for kind of a similar strat here, where he's just jumping across the top, using Shadow Blade to clear the dragonflies. Ooh, that was a little dangerous. Kind of missed it there, but Mazimov getting to use Magnet here in Needle stage. The Needle stage with Magnet First is faster than both Top and Gemini First, and a little easier. Bustering this stage is much more challenging than using Magnet. By the way, Hitch using he used them but then didn't follow it. But there's a couple of buffer shots you do. We saw Maz do it earlier, where you shoot 2 Shadow Blades on the ladder, which gives it basically just wastes enough time for the Stomper to be out of your way, so you can just go from the top of the ladder and jump over him without him hitting you.
Well, enough needle. Like in a race setting, you can complain only so much about best pattern versus worst pattern, because that's what, a second or 2 difference at absolute most.
Yeah, a second at the most.
Yeah, so it's just don't do a laser and you're fine.
Yeah, you miss a laser in this fight and you probably are wasting at least 5 seconds, unless you get a really lucky bounce.
As hit the shot one into his invulnerability, but that's not that big of a loss.
Yeah, typically, in this game, that's about a half-second loss. So yeah, overall, very good fight. Losing a second to a pattern or a half second to a missed shot is nothing compared to 5 seconds for a missed laser.
lots of, I guess because Jet is so required in Snake Man, there's no reason to ever do Needle before or Needle after Snake Man. So you're always going to do on the second on the tri wave of vulnerabilities, robot vulnerabilities. Always do Gemini then, right?
Yeah. You'll see a couple of Needle first runners, but from a speed perspective, Gemini, then Needle, then Snake is pretty much always going to be fastest by a considerable margin.
Because the battle is too long in Snake because you need the Jet.
Correct. Yeah, you definitely need Jet in Snake. And the Snake fight is particularly laggy, so using anything but Needle in that fight would cost you a lot of time. And then Gemini has this weird quirk where there's 2 clones, and you can actually hit the clones alternatingly. And so if you buster him, you can actually speed up the fight a little bit in the first phase by shooting in 2 directions at once. But even if you don't do that, you're pretty much locked into this route if you're going for the fastest possible speed.
Cloud section is really kind of nasty if you don't rush Jet it. Not just because the enemies and that, but because of the kind of bug which can throw you off the platform when the cloud thing shows up, which got me as a kid a lot.
Oh yeah, me too. I learned as a kid to jump when those platforms are spawning, otherwise they can push you off. Yeah, neither runner missing a laser against Needleman. That's good. Hitch had a little bit of a close call there on the second shot, but it just rebounded into him.
Yeah, you did that last night in your run. You hit Needleman on one of your shots with like the back sprite of the 4.
All part of the plan, just like Hitch.
Yeah, I don't. It's probably something you set for. This is the worst that can happen, and it'll still hit him.
Right.
That's kind of a general speedrun plan.
Yeah, you kind of have timing windows, and what's the edge of your windows. You can kind of be safe anywhere within it. Matt's having a little trouble off the ladder there. Mega Man 3 ladders are a little quirky. When you're trying to drop off of them, you actually have to climb down them for just a little bit, or else when you push A, it'll pull you back up to the top. And then when you're jumping off of them, you can actually jump off early before you get to the top of the ladder. But then if you don't jump off the ladder and you try to slide, you'll probably just climb back down the ladder. You'll see that kind of mistake a lot.
Those electric gate things, if they're going the way you're going, can you jump through them and not get hit?
Not as far as I've never been able to do that. It might be something with task level movement you could do. I've never actually tried to do it, but I just know as a kid I would, and it would never work.
Yeah, I don't remember being able to do that either. It's just because that's something Maz was running into, is like that one little mistake. Yeah, he couldn't jump through the gates coming at him, and they bounced and were going the other way, and he had to either wait or he decided to damage boost eventually, which probably I would have ended up doing in a similar situation.
Sure. That particular electric gate, it's actually pretty tight movement to be able to skip it. You have to jump off the ladder and slide pretty immediately and jump. It's one of those things I didn't know you could even do until I'd always waited them out when I played, casually, until I'd seen a speedrun and saw that it was actually possible. As always, the lesson was to get good, and these things become possible. So you see Hitch is very low on Jet ammo, but when you're not physically standing on Jet, you actually don't drain any. And so he was able to make 4 ammo there last an entire screen to get to the end.
And Sparkman happened. I didn't see it. Must have been a good fight then.
Some Hazes through 8. That's a very solid 8 robots for him. You can see how laggy there at the end that Snake Man fight was, and so that's a fight you don't want to drag out with 28 Buster shots. And so Dock robots you can do in any order. A lot of it's really just personal preference of the runner. There's some small strategies because there's one E-tank in the 4 Dock robot stages, and that's in Dock Needle. So sometimes maybe you want to put that in the middle so you can make a choice, midway through if you actually need it or not. A lot of people in their PB attempts will decide to go for the hardest stage first. To get it out of the way and to have less resets later on.
Did you get the despawn? Can you tell by watching?
Yeah, this would be much slower if you didn't get it. So
This is the 3.5 second one, right?
Yeah, it's relative to your level of play, but it's pretty close to 3 seconds.
And the Spark Man is 2.5. Get those mixed up.
So actually, the Spark is 1.5. My general estimates are like 1.5 for Spark and about 3 for Shadow. Okay. That said, the slower your level of play, the more time you save from each, because you'd be spending longer, in those sections. The best way to do this Doc Wood fight really is to just take those 2 hits. This fight does a ton of damage. The Wood Shield does 8, and Woodman himself does 8, and so he took 16 damage in that fight. But it just happens to be the fastest way to do it. Hard Knuckle strats here. I would probably recommend Gemini Laser, but it's a good ploy here to save magnets for this section, because if you actually use magnets in the previous, you won't have enough to complete this section without a drop, which he got. So, but yeah, nice. It was nice to see the Hard Knuckle strat. It's cool to see people come up with unique solutions to these type of screens. And then another unique solution here, we have, well, maybe not so unique, but we have Hitch jetting this section here that we saw Maz take by going underneath all these screws there. Rush jet. Sorry, go ahead.
It's fun to see, and like, especially if you're learning a thing, what you're willing to learn in a short, if you have a shorter amount of time, what you're willing to learn, what you're not willing to learn, what you can just kind of go your way through. So seeing Hitch do that is perfectly good to me to see. It's kind of a, you decided you'll learn that later,
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you're learning on a deadline, you have to decide where your energy is best focused. But anyway, Maz finished that stage with 2 health. I was kind of getting to a point about Woodman doing a lot of damage. Doc Shadow tends to be the hardest Doc Robot stage for a lot of newer runners because of how much damage the stage deals, and particularly how difficult that Woodman boss fight is. So health management is going to be really important for most of the runners that we see, in this tournament.
Stock robot. We'll find
Hitch threw with a very solid 8 robots as well. I'd wager to say that he's in decent shape compared to his PB. He did have was it 1 or 2 deaths earlier? But Doc Gemini is my vote for hardest stage in this game.
Did he have a death? I don't even know if he
had. Yeah. So that was a game over. So I think he'd had 2.
Okay. That's not the worst game over, then.
No, when you're on 0 lives in a race, it's really scary to potentially get all the way through a long stage like this and then die to the boss and have to do the entire thing over again. So sometimes, it's not even the worst idea to take a tactical game over at the beginning of one of these stages if you're not confident in your ability to get through it deathless. As far as hardest Doc robots go, so this is my vote. A lot of people, again, the earlier you are in the learning curve, I would say you'd probably tend towards saying Doc Shadow is the hardest. And then you also have Doc Spark is no slouch because Quickman is probably the hardest fight in this game. And that can just wall a lot of players on its own. So there's a
pretty good first screen, by the way, by Hitch.
Yeah, very difficult screen to do.
Very strong with the magnets. The second half.
Sure. It's one of the hardest hardest screens to learn because there's just so much memorization. You're firing at things that haven't appeared on the screen yet. Yeah,
I was watching Tiki spend a good hour and a half just doing that section alone, and doing it in different sections of that particular section. Really, piecing it out just to learn each individual spawn point. So when he throws the magnet missile correctly.
Yeah. So we saw Mazimov miss with his last snake, and then he switched to Shadow Blade, which is something I recommend because you have to be really close to the giant Met at the end there to hit him with the snake. And so if he gets out of your range, switching to Shadow Blade and killing him with that is definitely a good solution. I like that left wall fight there. Wily War strats. And then the other thing we saw from Maz was he slid into the giant Met after it died, but before its explosion went away, and so he hit it, but it didn't do any damage to him. which is just another kind of unique quirk of that like particular enemy. I don't think there's any other enemies that do that to you.
Do you recommend jetting or marining through that stock Gemini section?
So they're both actually pretty similar time-wise. I would say marine is the simplest way to get, like it's easier to lose time with jet, even though it's an extra menu. Marine is just really simple. You just go straight. In order to actually like save time with jet over marine, you have to do the screen a little unorthodox. So I would probably recommend just switching to marine there.
Need more marine as is, right?
Schitch was a couple frames away from death there. Bubble Man was bearing in on him there. But getting through Doc Gemini. Meanwhile, so he has one Doc Robot stage completed. Maz has 2 and is now going through Doc Gemini here himself.
For those who didn't know, the tadpoles you can only have 3 of them on screen at a time. So if you clear a bubble and 3 tadpoles are on stream, the bubble just disappears. That's a very tactical thing to do throughout, especially the Doc Gemini part. 3 go on so you can clear out the bubbles faster and slide underneath them.
Definitely.
Ooh, that's interesting way.
Yeah, typically, if you're going to see people deboost across the spikes, you'll see them stay on jet first. But Maz here going for a strat you'd probably see in like Buster Only, for instance, just jumping straight into that first fish. But gets through just fine. It's particularly risky to slide on those spikes just because killing the fish, if they drop something, it can eat your jump if you collect it at the wrong time. Unless you're particular about your timings. So pretty bold move there, but he pays off for him. He saves time over using jet or marine for that section. Schitch going through this spike fall here, it's pretty safe, but if you die there, the checkpoint is actually at the bottom of the fall. And so a lot of people don't know that. If you die in the spike fall, you're going back to the beginning of the stage, and that's easily over a minute time loss. So, be particularly careful about that. Maz has a little bit less close call with Doc Bubble there. And on to his last Doc Robot.
How much lag time do you save by killing that garbage block, by destroying it?
It's not a lot of time. I would say it's probably like a half a second.
It's generally very easy to do, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, the only danger is if you kill it and then try to slide through it, a drop can ruin your day there. So the trick to this fight is you want to get hit by the boomerangs. They do 2 damage. Quickman does 8. He wisely chooses E-Take here because he would have died to that hit right there. The other danger in this fight is if you miss with the snake, it'll start climbing the wall. It'll take a while before it actually despawns. So you'll be mashing start trying to get to your E-Tank, but you can't pause with a weapon on the screen. And so he was shooting 1 snake at a time, making sure it hit, and then he was able to safely select his E-Tank there. So a lot of people go into that fight just, firing snakes wildly, but that's a surefire way to get yourself killed.
Can you do the music despawn going to the left like Schitch did there without any?
You can. I'm sure there's a setup for it, but it wouldn't be recommended. I don't know of anybody that's set up a consistent left side spawn, so I think anybody going to the left probably just doesn't know the despawn.
Chooses not to go for it.
Yeah, so he's gonna jet over these gates, which these gates are really awkward. They don't really give you much time to stand on them before they open up and drop you. And especially with how variable the slowdown is in this section, it can be really tricky to learn. And again, like you said, it could take maybe too much time to learn that. If you're learning this game, it might be better to focus on boss fights and the like, and just use jet, because jet is very powerful in this game. It can get through just pretty much any platforming obstacle.
Had a purposely done E-Tank there?
I think so. Just preemptively using it so he doesn't have to menu again during the fight.
So, yeah, that might be it, yeah. Okay,
so Maz on good pace here. I would wager his castle stages are probably in the 9-minute range, which would put him, something on mid 38 pace, which would be, within a minute of his PB. Not looking at his splits, but
so sort of joking aside here, what is the point of that Breakman fight? Like storyline wise, what is? I don't understand.
So basically, the Proto figures pretty prominently in the story of this game. If there's lore in Mega Man 3, it pretty much centers around Proto Man being the original prototype for Mega Man being created by Dr. Light, and he's this mysterious entity that shows up and hassles you throughout the game. That appears to be working for Dr. Wily. And so the fight there is, I would just say thematically, it's kind of just reminding you, because the big reveal at the end is actually who Proto Man is, and so I'd say that it's a story thread that they're throwing at you before you get into the castle stages. I would say that would be the point.
Damage landed on spikes where a drop had already won and actually ended up ahead in health for Maz there.
Yeah, that's a tricky screen, that underwater screen of Wily 1. It's easy to take deaths there.
So what are the this is something I couldn't remember the exact, if you remember me talking about this last night, the frame differences on the 4 turtle spawns.
Okay, so roughly, and I'm not going to go into exact frames here, but it's basically like 50, 100, 150, and 200 frames that each of the 5 turtles can be released at. So if you do the math on it, you're looking at about a 13-second difference between the best possible and worst possible pattern. By the way, Maz, if I'm not mistaken, used too many magnets in that Hammer Joe screen. So when he gets to the refights, he's going to run out against Hardman unless he picks up a refill somewhere. If you happen to run out of the boss's weakness in refights, know that every Mega Man 3 boss takes 4 damage from its own weapon. And so the backup there would be to switch to Hard Knuckle. But killing Hardman with Hard Knuckle, if you're not sure what you're doing, can lead to a soft lock pretty easily. So we'll have to pay attention to Hardman, to Maz's refights here and see what he does. We saw... sorry, go ahead.
You don't use... If it's only 4 for every single one, why don't you use it more often? Like, why don't you use Spark for Sparkman?
So you could actually use Spark for both. Basically, you do it to try to save menus, typically. That's like how the refights is routed around trying to save menuing wherever you can by using like weapons against multiple bosses, and then also for not having to menu back and forth between different pages. So you can fight both magnet.
There, by the way.
Sorry?
A magnet up refill there, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Maz knew what he was doing. Did
recognize it.
Yeah, he knew he was short.
Sorry, I just wanted to point it out to you because you had mentioned it.
Hitch is in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah.
Is he looking for E-Tank? No? Okay. He has 2 health here. You just got to be very careful. This is not a section you want to die in. Maz is going to try to set up for this 1-cycle devil kill. Oh! His first jump was so good. It looks like he got 7 hits. And then I couldn't tell if maybe the timing of his jumps was a little slow or if he just didn't get the good enough mash on the second jump. It looked like maybe the timing was a little bit off, but just missed by 1. Missing the devil kill here cost 18 seconds. But you can tell his mashing is solid. That first jump was excellent. Getting 7 hits on 1 jump is not easy to do.
He got an E-Tank, it looks like. He got that E-Tank and used it, which is good because he's already lost some health.
Yeah, he's making some. Both runners are actually just making some solid choices as we go along here. There's a lot of wise decision making, I think, in this race.
Yeah. Interesting backwards boost if you plan on getting hit. It's going into quick. Some tough. Little bit low on health here. This left side strat you were talking about, this was Maz did for quick, right?
For Crashman here.
crash.
Yeah. He just stayed against the left wall and just shot from there. Schitch going with a more traditional fight where he tries to, kind of shoot the hard knuckle and make Crashman jump into it, but he's in some trouble here. Oh my goodness, this fight.
Oh, got him.
Wow, that was some epic dodging. I'll give him that. I want to say if you run out of hard knuckle here that I think the backup would be top spin. Instead of doing 7 damage, I believe it does 4. He should have enough hard knuckle to do this fight if he doesn't miss too many times. Okay, so he's going to have to finish up here. Let's see if he knows what weapon to go to. He does take 2 from the Buster, so this should be fine. And it looks like he's going to finish that fight off. Maz getting through the little prelude stage to the refights.
Never could do that without taking damage.
Yeah, some of them, I mean, even in the speedrun, you choose to take damage there. The junk golems are notoriously difficult to actually dodge. So Maz a little low on health here. If he has an E-Tank, he probably is going to use it right here when he menus. Okay.
Got plenty.
He had plenty. And it looks like he's going... So, this route is pretty common for most runners now. Ooh, he saves 1 topspin energy. Which would be just enough to get the Gamma quick kill. But this is the common refight route now. There used to be a lot of different ones that you'd see. But this is pretty standard as an acceptable... as the just accepted fastest way to do it. So Maz again opting not to take the damage boost there from Hardman.
A little bit different because you want to be on the left when you kill him rather than the middle in the actual stage.
Yeah, so I find the refights to be pretty interesting in this game for that reason. In the stages, you want to be in the middle and you want to kill the boss in the middle, whereas here your only goal really is to be close to the teleporter when the fight ends. And so see there, that underwater section is tricky. It's the only time you really particularly are dealing with underwater physics. Especially if you use Jet or Rush Marine in the Dock Gemini section. So yeah, a little tricky there. But I don't know. I had some point I was making. Anyway, Maz. You were talking about why not use Spark. So they actually, it's just a little better to use Shadow on both Magnet and Sparkman here, rather than Spark, because Shadow Blade can hit Magnet when he goes up to the ceiling. Both weapons do the same amount of damage to Sparkman, but it's better against Magnet to use Shadow Blade.
Yes, looking at the chat here, there's a way to soft lock. I said hard lock on Hardman, but that's not right. Using hard knuckle.
So the way the soft lock, it's not exclusively using hard knuckle, but it's just easier for it to accidentally trigger. Basically, if you kill Hardman in the refights while you're frozen, there's no trigger the game has to unfreeze you. All right, nice. So Mazimov sets up a quick kill there for Wily Machine, where you shoot a couple of snakes to lag the game, and it makes the Wily Machine usually drops down and goes back up pretty quickly, and you have to get 7 hits in with the snakes. And so he shot the snakes to slow the game down to give himself more time to kill him in one cycle. So Maz is looking at a 38 here, which is that would beat his first round time, or
yep,
his first race time, and again would be within a minute of his PB, which is always phenomenal for a race. And he does have 1 ammo here, assuming he wants to go for the normal Japanese version quick kill, which he does.
Yes.
And that's a 38.57 by splits. Congrats to Maz. He ended up with a 38.59 race spot, so race spot even got him at a 38.
18 seconds difference. You kind of know what he's going to get when he does a race.
Yeah, consistency goes a long way towards tournaments like this. So Maz was able to do that kill. He's using the Japanese version. We see Schitch take a death here in Wily 2. That's not a bad death. That's close to the beginning of the stage, but this stage doesn't have a checkpoint. But yeah, so Schitch is actually using the US version of this game, which I noticed when he was fighting Flashman, because that fight is different. And the other difference is in that quick kill. So the quick kill that Maz did is actually impossible to do on the US version because of the way invincibility frames work. When you come out of a pause in this game, go Canada. But yeah, when you come out of a pause in this game, you actually lose your invincibility frames in the US version, but you keep them in the Japanese version. So you actually need those invincibility frames to kill Gamma with topspin in that particular way. So when we get to the end, we're definitely going to see Hitch go for a different type of kill. Wily 2 is generous in giving you 2 E-Tanks, which is the Wily stages in this game. There's 1 E-Tank in Wily 1, there's 2 in Wily 2, there's another 1 in Wily 3. This game is really generous with trying to help you out once you get to Wily. And the dock robots are the most impossible part of the game, and it only gives you 1 E-Tank throughout those 4 stages. So it likes to reward you and just put you on easy street once you get to the Wily stages. They're not easy in the speed run, but they're a lot easier casually. Okay, so Hitch had a good setup there. What happened to him is that he accidentally, when he was holding up, caught a diagonal. And so it turned him around, and then he wasn't in a spot where he could just hold up and match the Yellow Devil. It makes it really difficult to get the quick kill when you do that. But his matching looked decent. It looks like he's capable of that kill for sure. It looks like he might get a 3rd cycle. So if you're where he was, whoa, those are really, really hard to dodge. That was tremendous. That didn't look...
That looked cool. That looked cool to see, yeah.
Yeah. The hitbox on those things are really wonky. Dodging them the way he did is super impressive. But anyway, if he has 5 hits left, like he did there, you can actually just stand at his feet, kind of, and angle the Shadow Blades up and left, and just kind of match into him, and you can usually get the kill.
This guy is...
Yeah, this guy's not letting him pass. So he shoots, you can see he shoots gaps of 3 bullets and then waits, but then he also, has that one that comes from the top. If you get by him quickly, it's fine, but then when those bullets start to get off cycle, it becomes really tricky to do. Okay.
Lags too. So
yeah, that's a pain of a screen to fail.
That eats inputs and yeah.
Infinite is confirming himself as a god gamer because he says those are not hard to dodge. I always knew it.
So this section Hitch is coming into is such a weird Frogger section of Math 3. It just makes me think of Frogger.
Yeah, and the room, if you play around with it a lot, there's some really weird things that can happen. Like if you grab, if you grab the bottom of a ladder and a moving platform hits you, it'll push you where you'll actually still be holding onto the ladder, but it'll like drag you into the spikes. And there's like a zip in that room. There's a lot of weird things because of like the.
Gotta be frame perfect what he just did. He was up almost on the ledge and. That's where he ended up. Oh, hey, he still got that.
So didn't get a chance to talk about that kill before, but basically, this game has a glitch where it doesn't want you to pause when a weapon's on the screen, but it doesn't make that check when Rush is equipped. So what he did is he shot 2 Rush bullets there, and he switched to topspin mid-flight, and then those bullets actually took on the property of the weapon that he switched to, so they became topspin bullets. Which topspin pierces through enemies, and so it actually did damage while it was in his hitbox every frame until he died.
These things. About how I would do it, so I'd always go into the refights with low health.
Yeah, that's pretty common. This section is really difficult. Like, actually, everything about the Wily 4 lead-up is hard. The screen we just saw Hitch go through has 3 jumps that all have 2-frame windows. Definitely a lot going on in the stage even before you get to the refights. And in Mega Man, if you look at anybody who's learning a game and compare their times to, world record times and see like where they're losing time, refights is always the number 1 in every game for every runner. This is always just the most complex stage there is in classic Mega. It's a nice shadow fight.
I'm gonna ask you about what should be your mindset going into Shadow Man with the knowledge that you can lose all your top.
So you definitely want to know why you lose top. By the way, Hitch getting a little like frozen animation there when he used his hard knuckle. A lot of people think that's a soft lock, but that actually goes away after a little bit. You can avoid that by not shooting the last hard knuckle right into his invincibility frames. You have to let the knuckle actually travel a little bit. Okay. I'm always scared when their last hit is right when they're about to get frozen, because I hate to see soft lock on the refights. Anyway, so if you're trying to fight Shadow Man with topspin, you need to stay out of the center of his hitbox. So you want to try to attack him from the outside. The other thing is you want to attack him while facing him, because topspin pushes you back against the direction that you're facing. So if you're facing away from him and hit him, you'll get sucked into his hitbox, and then you'll lose a lot of your topspin that way. So try to get into the outside of him and attack him while facing him, and you should be good. Also, I'd always recommend attacking him on the way up instead of on the way down. He's trying to be really safe with this last hit. It was his last laser, and he definitely didn't want to miss it, so he allowed Needleman, who was a total jerk there, to jump on him a couple times.
To be a quicker jump than I'm used to, jumping to the left-hand side of the screen.
Yeah, Needleman's a really difficult fight to do casually, just because of how unpredictable his pattern is and how he can just do a low, quick jump right at you.
We were kind of discussing this last night about the this game kind of being rushed, pun intended, and that the last two stages aren't really stages.
Yeah, that's true.
Boss fight.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for the development of this game. I'm not really sure. I know that the developer of this game believes that it was rushed, and that they had a lot more plans for this game that they weren't able to flesh out, just given how tight of a timetable they had. So be curious to see like what actually they had in mind and how that would have compared to the game that ended up. But if you look at it content wise, it's not shorter than the other Mega
I don't
Mans.
think so.
At least not the NES ones. So
What happened there?
He was a little slow on the first phase kill. So basically, after you kill the first phase, the second phase is still on the same kind of like global cycle that the first one was. So if you kill him late, he'll have skipped over the part where he goes down. And so that's what happened there. He actually skipped over the part because he was a little slow to kill him in the first phase. This is a solid backup though. It's pretty safe. You can kind of stay away from him with Rush Jet, and then when you want to be daring, just get up in his face and mash as fast as you can. Just one more boss fight here to go.
Boing, boing.
Apparently
If you were listening to this last night, we were saying, that's like could have been Dr. Wily. Just he was cloned and the original's head cut off and placed a.
We have a working theory that that's the actual Dr. Wily, and this is the fake that you kill here.
And that he's like he's got his head in his coat or something. I don't know.
And so this is the kill that you'll see in the US version.
What?
So basically he paused a little too close. Little too close. Yeah, so the okay, GG.
There we go.
That's a 48. That would have been a PB 2 days ago for him. Actually beats his time on the leaderboard, so he can submit this one. The other one was in multiple parts and he didn't want to submit it, but he beat it again. So in a race. Very good run by Hitch. But yeah, so actually when you unpause from the menu there, the bullet will continue to travel, but in this game you don't become active for like 10 frames. Like you go through the teleport animation when you come out of the menu, and so the bullet will continue to travel, but it won't have a hitbox until you're actually out of your teleport. So if you pause with the bullet too close, it won't actually do damage. But yeah, good run for both runners. Both very close to their PBs.
That'll move Mazimov to 2-0 in Group F. He's a little bit behind in points wise from the leader there. So he'll move up to first place by virtue of having 2 wins versus no one else having 1. And so he's still got. This is one of the 5 groupings. If you're unaware of how the Mega Man 3 tournament is working, it's a pod format similar to what you'd see in like a World Cup or something like that, where players are placed in pods, and then just like the World Cup, the top 2 in each pod advance, with various tiebreakers being applied if necessary. And given the uneven amount of participants, some groups have 5, some groups have 4. And this is a 5-group match, and you still have to play everybody in your group, regardless if it's 4 people or 5. And so Mazimov has, let's see, he's got JVeth and M-Kink. Or is it just backwards? Knack Me.
Nah, M-Con.
I like Knack Me better.
Okay, you can go with that.
Yeah.
Call him that. See what happens.
Let's see. That was Hitch's first, so he's got everybody else in the pool, including Triwave, to hit on to battle Sukawan.
Yeah, Maz has really set himself up in a good position here to advance. Obviously, anything can happen with still a lot of matches to go. But starting off 2-0 here is really strong.
Alright, so what's next on the schedule? I am glad that was asked. Where's this thing here? Alright, coming up, I believe is a Group E match? Yes, Group D, not Group E, Group D match. This is one of the actual 4, with 4 participants in it. We'll have Meteor Wave and Great, I'm going to say John, I was going to say Jahan, but I'm pretty sure it's Great John. Will be coming up in about 5, 6, 7 minutes. Put a cap on the match fast?
Yeah, I mean, again, I just want to congratulate both runners, because I feel like they both had solid races. Didn't make a ton of mistakes. Obviously, they both will feel that they could have done better, but race settings are really hard to pull out your best run. And these guys being, very close to the PB, having solid decision making throughout, overcome, the few mistakes they made, and didn't get stuck anywhere, and just really pushed through and had very, very good runs both. So that was a joy to watch.
Well, neat. And so we'll be back shortly with the next match.